Hi, everyone. Yesterday, we discussed about what is the missing piece in the whole self-discovery or the self-realization journey. So we might have great spiritual experiences. We might have understood the presence, but then when we come back to our actual day-to-day lives, we feel lost. And we I suggested that the integration is the piece that's missing, where we bring back all this knowledge and then actually we become a living presence or a living essence of all those seeking put together, culminated in our being and doing. So today, what I wanted to discuss briefly is about, all the spiritual seeking that we get into could be understood in under one umbrella. The outcome or of all those process is self-realization. So what is self-realization? It's realizing one's own self, like who we are. You might have been, already popular about Ramana Maharishi's "Who Am I?" inquiry, and Advaita, and there are so many Vedanta and other schools of philosophies. So we have in yoga, we have the devotional bhakti yoga, and then the karma yoga, which is the action or the service, and then we have the jnana yoga, which is inquiry or the intellectual inquiry and surrender. So I come from an Eastern background. So when you, even with other religions, like you want to understand your, like ourself with relevance to the universe. Some call the small self and the bigger self. So we want to understand, and it's called self-realization. We realize something, we remember something, and then we reclaim that something. So the whole origin goes on the basis of identification of ourselves as this body, as the mind, and all the other layers, And when we are seeking in the path of self realization, what is realized is these are all the misidentification. And so you identify yourself with the oneness or the universe or the origin itself. So, this is the self realization journey. So, here I would like to pause and share something with you. Um, okay, hope you all can see this. So, this is Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, when we look into this hierarchy, the bottom one is the physiological needs, the basic needs, the survival needs. And it also includes the psychological needs. So, first we, food, water, shelter. And then we look into the safety needs like security, safety. And then the psychological needs is love, belonging, relationships, intimacy, connection, friendship, all that. And then as human beings, we want to kind of look into some kind of success, accomplishment, respect. So we look for or seek for a feeling of fulfillment, purpose, acknowledgement, accomplishment, appreciation, respect, and all those things. And on top of that comes the self-realization and the self-actualization. So so the reason why I bring this is this is an inherent need within all of us. It's not something that only, few of us seek. It is always inherent within us. There is always a desire to fulfill all these needs. And in the top piece of the pyramid is the self-realization and the self-actualization. And later on, we also have, the cognitive, aesthetic appreciation of beauty, appreciation of nature, appreciation of like really exploring human potential, creativity, expression, art, and all those things. So if I'm really starving and I'm super like starving, I'm not even having my basic needs met, I'm sure I can't be appreciative of the art. So even though this is pyramid structure, this is not a linear way, but again, there's always like, to some extent, we only when we meet the basic needs, then the need for the next one shows up. But sometimes it could be back and forth, up and down, not necessarily in a linear form. So the whole purpose of bringing this and then connecting to our conversation yesterday or the previous video, please go check that out, is that, see, those days, just self-realization itself was the final destination. And people came into that field only after having gone through their basic bachelorhood, their duties, and then they step into the self-realization journey, like as though it was kind of saved for the senior citizens, or they're done with the life kind of duties and responsibilities, and then they come into this field. So eventually, when they go in that pursuit of self-realization, when nothing is expected out of them, and most of them, they go into isolation, into the woods, seeking, or into different gurus, ashrams, or whatever it is. And they have very minimal needs or expectations for their sustainment. And they are also not expected, the society supported their, all these growth needs. These are called growth needs. So it almost became like that itself was becoming a venture. And if people were able to attain it, then they were celebrated as the masters or the gurus. And most of them, even like, they continue it life after life, they say. So this is like a natural progression or the sequence of how life unfolds along with the pursuit of that need also. But in today's world, we don't stop just with self-realization. You might wonder, oh my God, even self-realization is a big deal. Yes, I totally agree. But then the most different shift right now in all our being, in our world right now, is that this need is getting so quickened. Like, everyone is sorting after, everyone is having that deep desire, and it's not just enough, or I won't say it's not enough. It's like the chapter doesn't end with self-realization. That's what I was trying to say. Not enough. Because after you even realize yourself, you got to get back to supporting yourself, supporting your family, or whatever life you have. So even if you have pursued this on its own way, after self-realization, you kind of like learn a new enlightened way of living your life. Some jnanis and yogis even say, You're only qualified, or you only understand life only after self-realization. So your life actually begins only after that. So when you are doing, when you're going in this era, you you got to kind of like, you come back and you get back to the same system from where you excluded yourself into this journey and seeking. So now when you come back, it's so noisy. You have all those other needs that you got to fulfill for yourself and the people around you. You have relationship. And the if you have been a sincere seeker, you might quite know that it's one thing to be with oneness and bliss in your meditation room or in the woods, but then it's totally another thing coming back to, especially meeting your parents, living with your in-laws, or living with your spouse and children, or even the society. So it calls for a completely different transfer of skills, of all this richness that you have in this inner world. Now, today's era demands you to actually actualize and operate in a way that you really have this wisdom, that you really demonstrate that you have that wisdom. Not to prove anyone anything, but it's just becoming a need. It's a necessity. Self-actualization is becoming a need. So even for the self-realized ones, that's the only distinction I want to bring in this video. Like, so you're simply not worshipped, you're not just put on the pedestal, and you're not having a big gathering, that's going to follow. You're just going to be ordinarily living an extraordinary life. You're in the presence, you embrace everything. Yes. you know the depth, you know the wholeness, you have realized yourself. But then in this human form, in this human body, with the limitations of the body and the mind and the responsibilities and the social web we are in, we don't have that luxury anymore to kind of keep ourselves or separate ourselves, like as though we are a little bit on the higher end and look down on the other things. No. In fact, I would even say it becomes even more challenging, because when you walk the path back, it demands integration. It demands integration of really translating all this into reality, into our practical day-to-day lives. So again, this video is making a point that we don't stop just with self-realization. It doesn't end there. Just even getting there is a big ordeal. But then what's after that? There are only a handful that could arrive at this point. But again, not necessarily. Many, according to me, the way I see is, many of us even don't continue to tread that path of self-realization when we scramble in between with the actual need that calls for integration and to live in, you got to support yourself, you got to support your family, or you got to, show up in all your duties and all that while you do this internal journey within. So nobody's going to sponsor you, nobody's going to provide you, but at the same time, yes, you are protected, you are provided. But then there is this alchemy of trust, and also embracing reality, and a different set of skills completely called for in today's world. If this depth resonates you, please follow. I'm Self-Discovery Coach Hema, and my mission is to help demystify this whole path and kind of normalize living in presence, self-realization, and self-actualization as just the next leveling up of who we are as human beings. Thank you.